Good evening. This is Sunday Express on the 10th of September 2023. Now, a few statistics for tonight that you need to bear in mind is that land is one of the most appreciating assets driven by development and infrastructure, and urbanization as it stands is growing at a rate of 4.2%. Among the three basic needs is housing, or rather what you refer to as shelter. Currently, we have 400 projects under the affordable housing strategy as government works towards bridging the deficit of 200 homes yearly. Is this enough for you and I as Wanjiko? Well, the man of the hour is already on set here at KBC Channel 1. I'm talking about none other than the Cabinet Secretary, Lands as well as Housing and Urban Development, that is Zakaria Njero. He already has gotten into our studios, and we invite you to give us your feedback on our social media platforms, including my very own at Manyara. We have official station handle at KBC Channel 1. And the question we are posing to you this evening is, do you think that the digitization of the land registries is the solution to land problems? Do you think the digitization of land registries is a solution to land problems? Well, as you work on writing up your feedback, let's bring you up to speed with those stories that have been making headlines.
Hatuna nafasi ya kupoteza na ugomvi. Hatuna nafasi ya kupoteza na kupigana. Tunataka tuungane, tushirikiane. Yule mkubwa ni yule atafanyia kazi wananchi kuliko mwenzake.
President William Ruto called for an end to leadership wrangles in Meru County. Azimio leader Raila Odinga accuses the national government of interference in opposition counties. The death toll in the Morocco earthquake soars to over 2,000 people. And a couple is struck dead by lightning in their house in Kakamega County.
Good evening, this is Sunday Express. I'm Regina, Manyara, and my sign language interpreter tonight is none other than Byron Abuli. Now, President William Ruto has called for order in Meru County following a prolonged political duel between Governor Kawira Mwangaza, her deputy Mutuma Egithenya, and a section of members of parliament that played out on Sunday during an interdenominational service in Rare. Give us on Minor reports.
President William Ruto on Sunday toured Lare in Meru County, a day after visiting Nyeri County, committing to implement the government development agenda. Meru County political wrangles took center stage during the interdenominational service.
Hatuna nafasi ya kupoteza na ugomvi. Hatuna nafasi ya kupoteza na kupigana. Tunataka tuungane, tushirikiane. Yule mkubwa ni yule atafanyia kazi wananchi kuliko mwenzake.
Nikiwa mtu wa mkono wa rais wetu, sitakubali na itakuwa ni makosa nikikubali tumwaibishe rais kwa kuleta siasa duni ya kupigana na kusosana, kuliko tuandame rais tukae karibu na yeye tutafute maendeleo.
Here, Governor Kawira Mwangaza sharply disagreed with the members of parliament from the county over the impasse between her and Deputy Governor Mutuma Methingia.
Tukienda tufanye uchaguzi ya governor na deputy, president na deputy, hiyo watu wakae pamoja kama mapacha mpaka miaka hii inaisha, wanaendelea namna hiyo.
Meru County haitatekwa nyara na makatero 10 ambao wanafikiria Meru iko na shida. Ni vizuri wajipange na waelewe ya kwamba Meru iko na kiongozi, na kiongozi ni governor ni.
President Ruto called for a truce, urging the leaders to focus on service delivery rather than the 2027 succession politics.
Mama wenu hapa wa county afanye kazi ya county. Ndio? Na uunganishe hawa watu wote, waunganishe wawe kitu kimoja. tusiwatenganishe, hawa ni grupi hii, hawa ni grupi hii, tuunganishe hawa watu wote ndio tuweze kwenda pamoja. Mnaona hata mimi navumilia wale wa maandamano na mara naongelesha hawa kidogo nini kwa sababu sasa unajua hii dunia na mambo ni namna hiyo.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has offered to mediate talks between the duo.
Governor na deputy governor, siku mlitafuta kura mlikuwa mnapendana, mnatembea pamoja, mnaongea lugha moja. Sijui ni shetani gani ameingia kati yenu, na huyu shetani lazima tumuondoe.
The stalemate between Mwangaza and Muthingia has led to a petition being filed in the Meru County Assembly calling for the investigations into the governor's leadership. Giverson Minor, Sunday Express.
Well, that happens to be my home county there. We are having issues with Governor Mwangaza there and her deputy Mutuma Nto Etingia there and a section of members of parliament. We hope that is going to be brought to order soon. So tonight we're going to be talking about matters of land reforms as well as affordable housing. If you have a home and you're already paying for the housing fund, what does this mean? Well, the man of the moment is already here within our studios. That is KBC, and we're talking about none other than Cabinet Secretary Lands and Housing, as well as Urban Development. That is Zakaria Njero. So in the event that you have a specific issue to be addressed, well, this is a place to be. We are open to your feedback. You can get us on Twitter at KBC Channel 1, and my Twitter handle is at Ray Manyara. And also tonight, we are seeking your opinion in regard to the digitization of land records there. Do you think that digitization of the land registries is a solution to current land problems? Do you think the digitization of land registries is a solution to land problems? Get tweeting. Our Twitter handle is at KBC Channel 1. Now to other stories. Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga has faulted the national government for not fully devolving to the county government functions that had been identified to be performed by the devolved units. The opposition leader was addressing a rally at Mageta Market after attending a church service at Ishuni Parish, the Catholic Church in Kisii County, where he also threatened to mobilize his supporters to resume street protests should the bipartisan talks fail.
Mtu anachaguliwa na chama cha ODM ama na Wiper, alafu usiku anaenda anasalimu amri. Hiyo ni kuhujumu demokrasia ya Kenya ambayo imelindwa kikamilifu kwa katiba.
Yale mamlaka ambayo imegatuliwa, serikali ya county ipewe nafasi ya kufanya kazi. Sasa hata utumishi wa huduma ya matibabu, community health workers, wanataka wao ndio wanaajiri kutoka kule juu. Leta hiyo pesa kwa serikali ya county fanya naye kazi. Iko serikali mara mbili, serikali ya juu Nairobi, na hapa chini iko serikali ya county ya governor. Sawa, tunataka waangalia Amerika ndio iko na mfumo kama hii yetu. Sasa hawezi kuja hapa juu, Biden hawezi kuja hapa chini aseme ya kwamba wewe kama gavana mpaka ufanye ile sera ya chama cha nini ya Democratic.
Still on politics, a section of Kenya Kwanza leaders are calling out Azimio leader Raila Odinga over what they term as victimization of opposition members of parliament for choosing to work with Kenya Kwanza administration. The leaders have also defended the government led by President William Ruto, saying it is all inclusive.
Sunday service at the Anglican Church of Kenya in Gede, Kilifi County. Among the congregants were a section of Kenya Kwanza leaders. They used the opportunity to fault the opposition for expelling members of parliament deemed to be working with the Kenya Kwanza administration.
Haiwezi kuwa ni yeye tu kutaka kuingia ama kupenya katika serikali, na isiwe si mtu mwingine yoyote. Kalonzo tulikuwa na yeye juzi tukipiga mpunga pale State House, ashaitwa.
Hata huyu William Ruto ambaye ni rais alifukuzwa ODM. Kwa hiyo baraka ya wale wabunge ambao wanasumbuliwa zimeanza, barabara ya baraka imeanza. Tunawaambia wasirudi nyuma, watakuwa wakubwa katika katika siku zijazo.
Kilifi Governor Gideon Mung'aro, who was also in attendance, expressed his readiness to work with President William Ruto-led administration to deliver to the electorate.
Kama tunaona na macho tunaongea kwa simu. Hii mambo mengine Aisha amesema wajeni kidogo tugoje polepole. Msije hata mimi kanifanya kafukuzwa.
Separately, National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula made the same call, urging legislators to prioritize the interests of their constituents and avoid internal party conflicts that jeopardize service delivery.
Don't be intimidated by anybody. Don't act in fear. Don't fear to act in accordance with the Constitution.
Wetangula made the remarks when he attended a fundraiser at the Uriri Catholic Church in Migori County. Yusufar reporting for Sunday Express.
Now, the death toll from the earthquake in central Morocco has soared to over 2,000 as rescuers struggle to reach Morocco's Atlas Mountain region, which was the epicenter of the Friday night tragedy. The Interior Ministry says more than 1,400 are nursing serious injuries, and the heaviest casualties are in the provinces just south of Marrakesh. King Mohammed of Morocco has declared 3 days of national mourning and ordered shelter, food, and other humanitarian aid for survivors.
Many people, both in the historic city of Marrakesh and villages in remote mountain areas, are out in the open for fear of aftershocks following Morocco's deadly earthquake on Friday night. Rescue efforts are underway at the mountain region to find survivors under the rubble as the quake is reported to have struck the high Atlas Mountains, 71 kilometers southwest of Marrakesh, a city known for tourist attraction. The Interior Ministry says there were fewer deaths reported in Marrakesh, the historic city which suffered great damage. Al-Huzza province is said to have the highest death toll, followed by Taroudant province. The tremors are reported to have been also felt in the capital Rabat, some 350 kilometers away, as well as Casablanca, Agadir, and Essaouira. It is believed that many simple mud, brick, stone and timber homes in the mountain villages collapsed. Residents are desperately in need of food and water. Emergency services are hampered due to debris on roads to the mountain region. According to a statement from the Royal Palace, flags will be flown at half-mast on all public buildings in the country for the next 3 days. King of Morocco, King Mohammed VI, ordered the armed forces to assist rescue teams, and Moroccans are donating blood as part of the national effort to help victims. The United Nations and several countries, including Spain, France, and Israel, have offered humanitarian assistance. In Kenya, a section of the clergy commiserated with the people of Morocco and held special prayers during Sunday service. Kamche Menza for Sunday Express.
A quick recovery to those who were injured, and also may the souls of those who departed rest in peace. Now back to the local scene. A couple in Musungu village, Malava constituency, Kakamega County, has reportedly died after their home was struck by lightning. According to Luke Mulunda, a relative of the deceased, the two died in Sicily when the natural calamity occurred during a prayer meeting. Area residents, led by Shirugu Member of Parliament Peter Wanami, expressed shock at the sudden death, calling on the government to erect lightning arresters to prevent similar tragedies in future.
Nilipoenda pale nyuma, nilipata hakika nyumba rati imekonga mpaka mchanga imepasuka. Nikaona kwamba ni kitu ambacho sijaiona katika maishani mwangu. Hakika ni huzuni sana. Pili ni kwamba katika hili boma tumeachwa na watoto ambao ni wanafunzi. Hao watoto, huzuni wetu kubwa ni kwamba hatujui kwamba vile watasoma.
Tumeweka matawa. Hiyo matawa tumeweka kwenye rati imepika. Hiyo matawa iko hapa. Mtu mwenye haka hapa atakunywa hiyo matawa.
Very sad. Now, as the globe marks the World Suicide Prevention Day, debate has intensified locally over whether suicide should be treated as a medical condition and not a crime, and hence refer the person to hospital instead of jail. Our reporter Regina spoke to Jane Zakaria, a counseling psychologist, on the telltale signs for suicidal tendencies and what the patient and those around them ought to do to avert death.
On the 10th of September annually, the World Suicide Prevention Day. But what has Kenya done in its capacity to curb incidences of suicide-related cases? Jane, thank you for your time. Now, from your practice, what would you say are some of the telltale signs and symptoms of someone who's suicidal?
First, they are not too happy. They have probably withdrawn from doing the things that they used to do, like going to work, being, passionate about engaging even in things like watching a program that they loved one time, or even football or exercises, or generally things that they used to enjoy. So their lives, in other words, is not learning as it should. They are not managing themselves as one would be expected to do. So one of the biggest signs is probably that one of withdrawal, and sometimes a willingness to talk about anything, and they are not happy at all. And when someone is not happy, we can always tell. And happiness is different from, just being quiet. Sometimes the person may talk about it. They may say life is hopeless, life is meaningless. That's what they feel. Because a person who is suicidal or has suicide intent will always feel some emptiness. And remember, suicide, the thoughts of suicide do not pain. There is no pain per se, the way we know pain medically. So the person will not complain of pain, and that brings the confusion because someone else who is observing them might think they are just pretending. They just don't want to wake up. They don't want to go to work. They don't want to be engaged. They don't want to talk to anyone. They're just being arrogant. So in most cases, those are the labels that we give to that person. And that's where the confusion begins, because the person knows definitely they are ailing, they are sick, they are unwell. And because this is an area of mental health, it's very difficult even for the person suffering to be able to explain what it is or exactly what they feel. But they'll be using words that probably describe close to what they feel.
Which words are this?
If a person was depressed for a while, that depression can sink. And once it sinks into the very bottom, the person goes down. And that kind of hopelessness, worthlessness, those are now the things that set in. None of us wants to feel that we are hopeless, that we are helpless, that we can't do things by ourselves. So that becomes quite a crisis. Actually, suicide intent and where suicide has happened is always a crisis to the person before they carried out suicide. And by the way, we don't say they committed suicide, because committing is like the person willingly got into it. As much as it may look like deliberate, because they actually will take their own lives in the unfortunate circumstances. The person is ailing, the person is unwell, too much stress, the usual stresses of life. Some people are not so resilient, because one would ask, how come we are all in an economic crisis? We are all suffering. We don't have this and that. How come we are not taking our own lives? But we need to take into consideration that we have different levels of resilience. So some people have probably what I would call stronger shock absorbers than others. And so they can negotiate the bumps, whereas others get stuck on the bump. And those are the people now who are at a higher risk factor of, carrying out suicide or dying by suicide, as opposed maybe to their counterparts who may be going through the same.
But in your perspective, how have we done as a country when it comes to handling such cases?
Our country, our government, and the relevant Ministry of Health has done something. But there's a lot more to be done. We can do better than we are doing now, because you realize problems and crises of life are increasing every day. So we need not be put on the back seat. We have to be the drivers of, checking out for the, solutions to this problem. Because more people are dying and more people are likely to die by suicide. So something has to be done, because these are sick people. The same way we rush people to hospital, there's an emergency, they have had this and that. The same way you even look for a vaccine, the scientists, are busy doing so. We need also to take this issue of suicide with the same weight, because this is an area of mental health. And without mental health, basically, we are not healthy. We need to be able to even sensitize the community. That part of sensitization is so critical in a society where there is also stigma attached to issues of suicide. And again, maybe the laws need to be amended to give room for this person who is mentally ill, who is sick, and are not identified as such. They are not put in the category of people who need to go to hospital. So we may need that amendment so that first, it is not prison, it is not arrest, it is actually taking the person to hospital.
Talk to me about the gaps that still exist as far as managing such cases is concerned, and even as respond to that. How do we seal those existing loopholes, Jane?
When we complain about headache, stomachache, joint pains and what, people get concerned. Yeah. But when we say this life is not good enough, no one seems to listen. Rather, they are listening, but they don't pay attention. And they are not interested anymore. They say maybe that's our own created problem or something. That's a gap.
We'll just move on.
Yes, and that is a big gap in terms of what should people do. So we also need some form of psychoeducation. What should I do if I had somebody crying in that direction? What action can I take as opposed to ignoring and dismissing them? So that is already a gap. But again, the point of referral. Do we know where we need to refer that person to? That's another area. And again, also the person who feels awful about life and like it doesn't matter whether they live, whether they die, it's the same thing. So they take the easier option. Do they also know where they can find help? We are there, counseling psychologists, we help, we explore. If it's too bad, they need psychiatric attention first. They need to be slowed down. They need to be contained, particularly if the risk factor is so high for them to die by suicide. And then we explore. That's the work of a counseling psychologist, a clinical psychologist, and many of us who are trained in that area, so that we are able to explore the issue. What option do you have other than feeling awful and going down the drain and to the valley bottom and hitting it? Do we have an option? Is there a different way you can manage your life? Life is full of options, it's full of choices, and those are the choices the person does not have.
Thank you very much for those valuable insights and inputs into this conversation. Jane Ngatia, a counseling psychologist, just well outlining for us what we can do as a country to better handle and manage suicide-related cases, even as we mark and the entire globe marks the World Suicide Prevention Day.
Usiwe mtazamaji pekee, shiriki kwenye Lucky Game na pia wewe unaweza jishindia kama Sheila.
Nimeshinda TV 55 inch. Nimeshinda
na imefika star 570 hash. Chagua Lucky Game. Utapata sanduku 7 zinakungoja mahali pale. Choose one of the boxes ambayo unahisi kwamba iko na bahati yako. Cheza sasa hivi mahali popote wakati wowote. Kumbuka ni star 570 hash. Jishindie. Shinda pesa moto moto.
Asanti na karibu kwa matangazo haya ya leo. Kuanzia Jumatatu ifuatayo.
Waza padhe bana, jo kumekuwa na operation hapo hivi, Manguru amekuwa na operation hapo Riamba Tai, lakini si nimefimbitika bana. Tuache niwapeleke na Riamba Tai kwanza, si ndio? Oya. Mimi unaweza nita Katelo ama unaweza nita kwako mbongini ya Kibo.
Wait, unanita kwa you can do what? Kwa you where there can do what that impact acha tu nitambambize. Guys, iko hivi. Kila Jumatatu tupatane KBC Channel 1 for the chipukizi, so itakuwa safi, so ya nguvu.
Umorio mko related ama naweza mtoka tenje. Naweza cheza kama mimi, si ndio?
Nipukujia huyu. Nipukujia huyu.
Kwanza, si ndio?
Good evening, this is still Sunday Express, and tonight we're putting into perspective matters of land reforms, urban development, as well as affordable housing. A quick fact about this particular ministry. Now, the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, the mandate is to National Lands Policy and Management, Physical Planning of Land Use, Land Transaction, Survey and Mapping, Land Adjudication, Settlement Matters, Rural Settlement and Planning. It also deals with matters of land registration, national geospatial data, infrastructure, land and property valuation services, as well as land administration. Further on, the ministry is charged with the following functions: National Lands Policy and Management, Physical Planning and Land Use, Land Transaction, Survey and Mapping, as well as Land Adjudication. Also settlement matters, rural settlement planning, that is the eco-village, land registration, national spatial infrastructure, land and property valuation services, as well as administration. That's just about to give you an overview of what the mandate of this particular docket has as far as government organogram is concerned. These are the main objectives: ensure accessibility, equity, and sustainable management of land resources for socio-economic development, as well as strengthen institutional capacity for efficient and effective service delivery. The mission is to facilitate improvement of the livelihood of Kenyans through efficient land administration, equitable access, efficient land administration, equitable access, secure tenure, and sustainable management of land resources. Those are just some of the mission that this particular docket has. Then the vision is to be globally competitive in a sustainable and land management in as far as it's concerned. Now, the man of the moment is here with us in studio. That is none other than Cabinet Secretary Land Reforms and Urban Housing, as well as Urban Development. That is Mr. Zakaria Njero. First question, where are we? What's the status report on as far as matters of land reforms, under the Vision 2030 is concerned, including the digitization process? To you, sir.
Thank you very much, Regina, first for the invites to come here and share what the ministry is doing, and also have a conversation with Kenyans on how far we are at on matters land. Digitization process is one of the land reforms that the government has embarked on, and I want to most sincerely thank those who are before me, because they had attempted to digitize land records, and where we started from, I want to tell Kenyans that we are really doing well on matters land digitization, because we know when we are fully digitized, it will mean Kenyans will get services in a better way, in a faster way, and in a more secure way. With the manual system, there has been a lot of insecurity of land records, where you find records disappearing, records being mutated, and this has adversely affected Kenyans when they want to transact on matters land. It has not been easy, but I want to tell Kenyans, we are there, and soon we'll be done with Nairobi, and from the lessons that we've learned, rolling out to other counties will be much easier and much faster.
But CS, thanks for mentioning one thing, and the issue is the security of these documents, given the history that we've had when it comes to the land registries. Given what we have seen with government systems, for example, the teams, it has been failing sometimes and has been a subject to attempted hacks. We are digitizing these land records. How safe and secure are these documents?
Yes, I want to assure Kenyans that the system we are using is very secure. We have backups in several areas. So what it means is that if the system is hacked or fails, then we have a backup facility that will make sure we get back to where we are.
Yes. And that brings us the question tonight. We're asking you, do you think that the digitization of the land registries is a solution to land problems? Do you think that the digitization of the land registries is a solution to land problems? Our Twitter handle is at KBC Channel 1, and the hashtag we're using tonight is hashtag CS Zakaria. Get tweeting, and also we welcome your feedback in regard to issues that you want Cabinet Secretary Zakaria Zakaria to address tonight on Sunday Express. Now back to looking at where we at. So how far are we in the finalization and the operationalization of the community land bill that is meant to address adjudication as well as titling of community land?
Yes, we have really moved very well on that issue, and we are collaborating with the county governments, because on matters community land, we are expecting, we are working closely with the county governments who give us the inventories of the communities living within there. And once we get those inventory, we verify, and after that we gazette. So mainly the whole exercise will be faster if the county governments, concerned county governments, also fast track that process. Because to us, once we receive that, verify and gazette, then the next process is for us to go ahead and start the process of issuing the titles. Yes.
Now, CS, the issue of squatters has been a thorny issue when it comes to matters of land ownership as well as land reforms. From your ministry, what are you doing to ensure that we do away with matters of squatters, especially on encroachment into private land?
Squattering has been a major issue in this country. And it's an issue that even His Excellency the President has directed that we really deal with it. In the previous administration, we managed to settle 10,900 people with very little allocation of 300 million. But in this financial year, the government has allocated 2.5 billion, which will be used to settle squatters across the country, and more so where we have this problem is in the coastal region. So this is an issue that we are really handling. But again, when we are talking about squatters, we mainly think of the rural landless. It's also good to let Kenyans know that even in the urban areas, we have these urban poor people who live in informal settlements, who live in deplorable conditions. We should also be thinking about them. And as a ministry, through Kenya Informal Settlement Improvement Program, we are handling that issue so that we don't only put all our energies and effort to the rural landless. Even in the urban areas, we have squatters who are actually even living in a more bad shape than you would think. So we have taken that also as a ministry, and we are doing very well with other development partners in making sure that we improve the lives of those living in the informal settlement. It's good also to let Kenyans know that 61% of people living in urban areas live in those informal settlements. So it's a big group that we should really think about and see how well we can make their life better.
So far, how many titles have been issued?
We have issued over 475,000 titles, but our target by the end of the year, we should be hitting more than 500,000 titles. One, as the State Department of Lands and Physical Planning, we were not well funded in the last administration. And we also generate a lot of revenue for the government. So the current administration has realized that, and it has now funded, given more funding to the State Department of Lands and Physical Planning. And that way we are going to do more survey, we are going to process more titles, and also Kenyans who are supposed to be, to have titles, we'll have them and help them improve their economic activities.
When you talk about land ownership,
right.
It cannot be devoid of politics.
Right.
As history has it, when matters of land are tied to politics. From where you sit at the helm of this particular department, how are you handling this? How are you dissociating, matters of politics when it comes to land reforms?
Yes, these are conversations that we've had with politicians, with governors, with MPs, and I want to confess that we are all want to sort out this problem. So, with proper participation, public participation and engagement, and that's why digitization is coming in, that whatever we are doing is right. So politicians, we are working closely with them, and at the end of the day, if from the regions they come from, their people are handled well on matters land and titles issued, they also get a plus as far as those communities are concerned. So this is a concerted effort where all of us are working together and engaging and closely talking together. And that way, I can assure you, by the end of it all, our people will be happy.
Looking at history once again, when you talk about historical land injustices in this current moment, how is your ministry addressing that issue?
That's also another area that we are facing, but with the help of the leaders, political leaders and the ministry, we are looking at it in a way that it's a win-win for all of us. And that's why when it comes to settling of the squatters who get into private lands and also government lands, we have a way of resettling those people in an amicable way, and so that if it's private land, we engage the owners of those land and see the best way to compensate them and resettle those people who have squatted in those lands.
Now to housing.
Right.
The housing fund is fully operational.
Right.
From where you sit, how does it look when it comes to matters of, onboarding onto this? There was a lot of push and pull, court cases and such, but that's the direction.
One thing I want all Kenyans to know is that we have shortage of houses in urban areas. The demand today is 250,000 units per year, but what the market is providing is only 50,000. And out of these 50,000, you get only 1%. It's meant for the low cadre, the low income earners. And that's why the government has taken that deliberate effort to make sure that we fill in that gap of the 200,000 through the affordable housing program. Through the finance bill 2023, that process and that program of affordable housing will now soon taking shape. I want to tell Kenyans that in the last administration, we had 9,945 affordable units which are in construction. But in this new administration, His Excellency the President has launched 13 projects which will give close to 40,000 units. And if we did that, if the government did that without the housing fund, then you can imagine how much more the government is going to do now that we have cheap finances through the affordable housing.
Then the question is, what constitutes affordable? Because it's debatable.
Right.
Does affordable mean social housing, or what is affordable housing?
When you look, I'll give an example. If today you want to buy a 2-bedroomed house in Nairobi, mostly it will cost you between 4,500 to 7,000 to 7.5, depending on the location. But with our current affordable housing, in our current affordable housing program, a 2-bedroomed house, we want to squeeze it to maximum 1.2 million, meaning one can choose for a long-term purchase scheme where the rent you are paying today, you can be paying the same amount of money for a longer period to own a house.
So there's a provision of renting to own under affordable housing.
Yes, it is. Okay. Of course, also there are those who would want to pay cash. So all those options are there. To get into the affordable housing, you also join the portal, the Boma Yangu portal through USSD star 832 hash, where you register with 200 shillings. Then through that platform, you select the type of house you want. After you do that, then you start saving. You can even start saving off plan. You'll be allocated a house, you choose a house you want, and that way before the project is over, you realize you'll have saved enough. But also, one other condition, for you to get that house, you must have paid 10% of the value of that house.
10% deposit of that house.
Yes, deposit, yes.
And you've said we have currently 13 projects that are going to generate around 40,000 housing units.
Yes.
Now, what are you doing? Because we have had this project before. We've seen it in the last regime, and we're currently here. What are you doing, especially to the private sector, to incentivize private sector to get into this particular space and construct these particular housing units? Because government cannot do it alone.
Good. Before, the problem was the offtake. You are a developer, you want to come and invest. By the end of the day, after you're through with the problem, you want to be paid. So there was that problem before. But now, with the housing levy, we have attracted so many people, so many developers who want to come now and work with the government, and that we also giving them incentives. One, we are working closely. The national government and the county governments are working closely together so that on land we get it free. National government, where we have land, we get it free on affordable housing, and the county government. And I want to report here that 42 county governments have already signed an MOU with us as a ministry on that collaboration. And that shows you the willingness of both levels of government to work together. That's why we have so many projects ongoing all over the country. So, one, we get land free. That makes the price of that of that house go down, because the value of land contributes a lot in any housing project. Yeah, so we are working in collaboration with the county government, and that is helping us a lot. Another issue here to mention is that we have come up with a program where in each constituency, we are going to build 200 units across the country. And this also is working very well with the MPs. They are the ones who are getting land for us. And that way, we'll make sure that we'll have enough houses and fill in that gap that I had earlier mentioned.
Now, that is well in. Now, let me take you back to the Boma Yangu platform. There are those who had already onboarded in the previous regime. What is the way forward for them? Do they automatically now onboard onto the housing side?
Oh yes. As long as you are there, you still wait. If the houses are ready, in fact, most of them now who had onboarded earlier, for those projects that are complete, most of them are in those houses. So it's a continuous process, but the only thing to remember is one ID one.
Let's get to the one ID, one housing unit. When there was a lot of debate when it comes to this particular fund, the argument was first, I'm in the process of building or constructing my home. Secondly, you find a home, a couple who are married and, each is in their formal employment. So they're all contributing. So let's clarify, one ID, one housing unit. But we cannot have both living there at the same time. What are options there? Let's unpack that aspect.
I still insist on the same. I have my ID. You have your ID.
Yes.
You'll get your house. I'll get my house. So that is the concept.
That's the concept.
Ideally here is that I cannot own two houses because we don't want to create another way of those who have getting more houses and maybe selling, making business out of it. Yes.
But these particular housing units can actually be inherited.
Yes, they can be inherited. True, they can be inherited once you are not there. Your child, your children can inherit that home. And again, that house cannot be sold until you cannot transfer it until 7 years.
Until 7 years.
Yes.
Of occupancy?
Yes, of occupancy.
7 years of occupancy, not construction.
No. Occupancy.
7 years of occupancy.
Yes.
Now, for someone who is maybe waiting to retire maybe in the next 1 year or so, they've already been onboarded by virtue of this is a loan now. They are contributing towards this particular fund. Can they transfer what they have already contributed, or what happens in that particular aspect? What happens? I'm imagining what happens with their funds. They've already...
No, there's a way that you can ask for refund.
Okay, refund.
Yes, you can ask for refund if you feel you have contributed some money and for one reason or another you don't want to continue. So there is the same platform of Boma Yangu will instruct you on how to go about it, and you get back your money. I think within 6 months you can get back your money.
So how soon can one get back their refund?
That's what I'm saying. Currently, I think it's 6 months. 6 months after you apply for that refund.
Now, these funds, do they accrue interest?
Yes, they do. They do. So once you ask for your refund, you get it with the interest accrued. Yes.
Now, we have seen now also there's also low uptake of mortgages. And we have now the housing fund as it is. You're targeting to increase the target of uptake in as far as mortgages are concerned around 30,000.
Actually, we are at 30,000.
You're at 30,000.
We want to go to 1 million. And with this affordable housing program, we'll reach there.
How do we go about it? Because we're still seeing, even with the KMRC coming into place, Kenyans are still not taking up mortgage as it should, as envisioned.
It's because the mortgage was expensive. But so what we are doing as a ministry and a government is to make sure that we make sure that the mortgage is not expensive. So why? It's not that Kenyans don't want to own homes, but then it has been very expensive for them to own those homes. So the government is now making it easier for Kenyans to own homes. Of course, no many bottlenecks. As I've told you, the Boma Yangu portal is a very easy thing to get into and to start paying and, saving. So ideally, Kenyans want homes, but it had been made very difficult for them. But with the current program of AHP, most Kenyans, and I believe within the next 5 years, we'll have over 1 million Kenyans having mortgages.
Okay, that's good news. I intend to be a homeowner soon. But now, let's talk about the issue of accessing finance, and funds towards owning home. If we're already in this particular fund, can one use their contribution to access funds to buy the home within the program?
Yes, you can. Of course, we have the KMRC, as you had mentioned. We also have other financial institutions who will also be lending money, but within a very reasonable interest rate. Actually, should be single digit.
Single digit.
Yes, single digit. So that way, we are going to partner with those financial institutions through the KMRC, and that way we have seen a lot of interest. A lot of even these financial institutions are also really interested in making sure that they are engaged as far as giving out finances to wananchi is concerned.
Now, there's a question of, does this fund also cater for social housing?
Oh, yes.
Or is it a parallel program?
No. It does cater for social housing and even market. In fact, it is anything that will improve, any project that will improve on the lives of the hustlers. This funding, this housing fund will be able to be used in that perspective. So it is a fund that is meant to transform the livelihoods of Kenyans. And when you also look at it, we are also not just building houses. Within that establishment, we are coming up also with infrastructure development. We are doing roads, we are doing sewers, we are bringing power, we are bringing in water. So it is a whole ecosystem that will help Kenyans live in a decent way. The other thing we should look at it, apart from the 4 walls, this program will also create employment. One unit gives direct jobs between 3 and 5 people, and between 5 and 8 they get indirect employment. So we're also going to create employment to our young men and women, and that way also we get our Jua Kali sector being active. We have 69 standardized components that we have ring-fenced that are going to be produced and manufactured by the Jua Kali sectors.
The Jua Kali sector.
Yeah, so meaning apart from the houses, there's also that other aspect,
effect.
Yes, of creating jobs.
The cost of construction, also is affected by the materials that are used.
Right.
And I like that you have said that there are things that the Jua Kali is going to be doing.
Right.
When you talk about affordable, we are also seeing emerging trends when it comes to building and construction, where we are going green, as well as going for cheaper materials. But do we have the requisite capacity locally to actually get onto this project? Other than the Jua Kali aspect, I'm looking at the green material as well as, these emerging trends.
Yes, we are encouraging investors, and I can assure you most of them have come in. We have countries to look into, like Singapore. We have Egypt here doing very well. We have Morocco. So we have countries where we can learn from. And we have had those private developers and investors coming because they also want to invest, and they have ideas. They have done that elsewhere. So we are going to incorporate all that. And of course, when we have industries and companies manufacturing locally, that's also an added way of our people getting employment and using the local materials to get these products on board.
The 13 projects, the 40,000 units, where are they?
Yes, we have one in Embu of 200 units. We have one in Kerugoya, place called there's a name, but it is in Kerugoya. We have Thika, we have Roiro, we have Mavoko, we have Mukuru, the meteorological site. We have Homa Bay, where we have Nakuru. We have recently we had Kakamega and Vihiga. So they cut across. Yeah.
So in total, sir, what would you say? How many counties have actually come on board, to provide this particular land for this particular project?
We have those where we have launched. We have Homa Bay, we have Nakuru, we have Kiambu, we have Embu, we have Kirinyaga, and Nairobi. But we have 42 MOUs we've signed with governors, meaning soon we'll be rolling out those projects. In those,
Now, before we start sampling some of the feedback, because it's coming in hot, there's a question that we have been posing to Kenyans on matters of digitization. How then adequately and can candidly, sir, the issue of land cartels has been quite a thorny one. Other than digitization, what are you doing as a ministry to actually do away with this menace once and for all? We've seen, families go poor and even people losing their lives over issues of corruption, land fraud and such.
For many years, we've heard about corruption and cartels in the land registries. I'm proud to inform Kenyans that this will now be history with digitization. Our digitization and automation policy will sideline cartels. Why cartels were coming in is because the process was, had hinges. But with digitization, proper digitization, you'll be able to transact seated at the comfort of your seat. So you really not need a go-between coming to assist you. So the cure for cartels is digitization.
Well,
and that's why we are keen to make sure that it works.
Now, so there was a curious case when we posed the question online. There's a person who said that they currently hold the original land title. However, when they do their search, it is actually owned by someone else.
Right.
But they have the original title. How do they go about it?
I want to repeat it again, Regina, that for us to cure that, we got digital. So in such cases, we call the two. Bring your documents, and then we are in a position to authenticate and see who is genuinely the owner of that land.
So are you saying, sir, that this person actually walks to the land ministry with their document and lodged the claim? Because their worry is once they raise the issue, this person has worked around the ownership and has tweaked 1, 2, 3 things. They're already living in that particular piece of land. They have developed it. They have the original title. But when they go check, on their documents, it belongs to someone else.
Yeah, that's what we are saying. We have an inquiry desk. When you have such issues and you know for sure that fraud has taken place, the easiest way is to come to our offices. We authenticate, we see how best, we see who really owns that land. And once we are fully convinced through documents that you are the owner, then there's a legal process to follow to make sure that the rightful person gets back the land they own.
Indeed. Now, Nancy, I'm sure you have been answered adequately by our guest tonight. That is Cabinet Secretary, Lands and Urban Development as well as Housing. That is Zakaria Njero. That you need to get to the inquiry at the office and lodge your complaint there. It is going to be tackled. Now, let's also sample some of your views that have been coming through on our various social media platforms, including Facebook and Twitter. And the first question to you, sir, is from Toro Hemund. He is asking, how will the houses be distributed or sold, yet one has paid through the housing levy? How will the affordable houses be distributed? That is Toro Hedmund.
For you to get this house, the first thing, you must register with the Boma Yangu platform. And as I said, once you register, there's a fee of 200 shillings. And after that, you select the kind of scheme you want, the place. You see, we are now going to have all these affordable houses across the country. So if you live in Nairobi and you feel your rural home is Nyeri, that's where you want to have a home, you can buy there. So you'll all be guided through the Boma Yangu, but you are the person to make that choice. Yes.
Then James Ouma preempted a question I had for you, and he's asking, what measures is the ministry going to put in place to ensure that those tenders for construction tender materials are not given to the tall people in government?
The houses?
Yes, the tenders.
The tenders.
I think he's talking about those who have already been in the system.
It is an open tender where proper processes are followed before finally the tender is given out. So mine is to tell the contractors and the developers who are applying, make sure all your documents are in order, and it will be fair competition. So there will be no worry that you are going to favor some people.
One or the other.
No.
But then also, Bonasias, is there a cap to how many projects like, say, Regina can actually undertake in this particular project?
It all depends on your competence, on your capacity.
Okay.
Because we want to see projects happening. We want, once we give you, you are given that tender, you start working. So here it all depends on your capacity.
Okay.
Because also you have seen we've had many government projects that start and then stall.
We were going there.
So that is something we really don't want. And you see, and the public works have been having that problem. So what we want to do now is to make sure that once we give you that project, that tender, we make sure that you have the capacity to do it, because we don't want again to have
stalled projects.
Stalled projects, yes.
And as you've said, you have issues, especially when it comes to the urban development, stalled projects. What are you doing about it?
Yeah, under public works,
yes,
we have initiated a program where all those stalled projects will now start being constructed. We had 5, just to mention, 5 county government headquarters. That is Tharaka Nithi, Lamu, Tana River, Nyandarua, I think Isiolo. Yes, Isiolo. All those had stalled. But currently, I think apart from one, the rest now already have been retendered and work is in progress. So what we don't want to encounter in future is such kind
stalled
of stalled project.
Yes. Now, one last one from James Oma before we also quickly look at what Ken Sirkal has to say. That he's asking, apart from the 10 slots za watu wa mkono, will the question of unemployment be solved? And if yes, how and for what period of time? That is one. Then the last one from this particular platform is that what are the penalties for not paying monthly rent for affordable housing? We can start off with the first and the second.
Right. One, it was the issue of employment.
Yes, opportunities,
yes.
and
Opportunities
for what duration?
Opportunities are there. Think of any construction project. What you find there, we have plumbers, we have masonry works, we have electrician, we have watu wa mkono. So there are a lot of works that really are created. We have the mama who comes every day to give tea and chapati, and then she's paid on Saturday when So there's a lot of other indirect employments or jobs that are within that whole ecosystem. So on the other question was on what?
What are the penalties for not paying rent in the affordable housing?
Of course, we want people to be disciplined. Once you acquire this house, one, you should realize this is not just rent. This is your house you are paying for. So the more you delay, then it means after some point, the house might be taken from you. So we just want Kenyans to have that discipline, that once you engage yourself in that program of acquiring that unit, you do everything possible to make sure that you don't default, that even when you default, you should have a very good reason to do that. But I'm sure, unlike rent, most people will make sure they even pay faster, so that you can own that house and have that section of title, which you can use to even to get money from the bank.
I think also what Sirkali is shying away from asking is that if he defaults, will he be kicked off the house since he had already paid some amount previously?
So that's why we are saying most of them, I don't think most of them will really want that to happen. I don't think. And it will not be the wish of the government to kick out people. But of course, there are rules and regulations that one has to follow. And we just want to encourage Kenyans for this program to succeed. Let's all pay so that more Kenyans can also, get that latitude of getting a house like you.
Now, as we're having this conversation, we're marking 1 year of the Kenya Kwanza administration, and that you're at the helm at the lands department, so to speak, the ministry. What do you envision? What is your personal vision for the next 12 months, sir?
One, on matters land, as I have indicated, digitization to me has been a key agenda. And once we are through with Nairobi, as I had indicated, we'll now roll out to other counties. Because if we do it in Nairobi and leave the other counties and other registries, then we'll have done half work. So my vision for the next 1 year is to make sure we roll out the National Lands Information Management System to other registries across the country. That is key. Two, we have a titling program. We know we have so many Kenyans who are living on lands, but they don't have the tenure document. So we have also, and you have seen for the last few months, His Excellency the President has been going across the country issuing titles. And you'd see the excitement. People have stayed for more than 40 years, 30 years. And once they get that document, they're really excited. Yes. So that prompted us as a ministry to make sure that every Kenyan who deserves to have a title gets it. So there's a program that we are really pushing, and I know in the next 1 year we want to move to 1 million titles issuance. Then also the settlement of the landless, as we had discussed. We want people, squatters who are in either public or government land to be settled, and also look into those who are also living, the squatters who are living in the urban areas. We make sure that we improve on the areas they live in. Under KISIP, Kenya Informal Settlement Improvement Program, we have also that program of issuing titles to those informal settlements. We regularize where they are living. Another aspect, Regina, is that of the colonial villages. You can imagine after 60 years, we have still what we are calling colonial villages. So we have also embarked on making sure that those people, Kenyans who are living in those colonial villages, get titles. We have started that with Nyandarua. We'll be going to Nyeri and all those other counties where we have such people to make sure that we improve on their conditions where they live, and also come up with infrastructures that will improve their
support
yes.
that. Now, before I let you go, would want to know, now that the levy, the fund is operational, how much is it raking in on a month?
On 15th of last month, we collected, it's being collected by the Kenya Revenue Authority. They are the collecting agents. They collected 2.65 billion, but the expected monthly contribution will be 6.2 billion.
6.2 billion.
Yes.
In your achievements there, you've talked about cleaning up matters of urban development. Right. Are you concerned about the mushrooming urban development that you're having, especially within Nairobi?
Actually, it's not only Nairobi. Let me tell you, the rural-urban migration. Okay. It's quite high, and this is not only in Kenya. It cuts even globally. Yeah. So we must plan. We must plan for that urbanization, because if we don't do it, then tomorrow we'll have a problem.
Indeed.
And then we look at it and say, and this is a fact, the future is urban. So how are we planning for this urban?
We have to adequately plan
exactly,
for it.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, that puts a cap to tonight's conversation. We have been hosting none other than Cabinet Secretary Zakaria Mwangi Njeri, yes, of Lands, Housing and Urban Development. And as he said, the future is urban, so we need to have adequate planning. I'm Regina Manyara. You're still watching Sunday Express. Now we speak sports with Daniel Wahome.
Usiwe mtazamaji pekee, shiriki kwenye Lucky Game na pia wewe unaweza jishindia kama Sheila.
Nimeshinda TV 55 inch. Nimeshinda
na imefika star 570#. Chagua Lucky Game. Utapata sanduku 7 zinakungoja mahali pale. Choose one of the boxes ambayo unahisi kwamba iko na bahati yako. Cheza sasa hivi, mahali popote, wakati wowote. Kumbuka ni star 570#.
Jishindie.
Shinda pesa moto moto.
Nakujua una mipango gani kuhusiana na story yako?
It's my story. Wewe inakutatiza kwa nini? Nani amekuambia kuwa umwaza mtu mwingine?
Sasa hivi niwe na mwaza nani? Mbuyu.
Is Casey the reason why mom left?
What?
Well, inaonekana hapa mimi ndio mama tu peke yake.
Are you the reason why mom and dad are fighting? Are you destroying our family?
A very good evening to you. My name is Daniel Wahome and welcome to Sunday Express Sport. Now, the national soccer team, the Harambee Stars, resumed training today ahead of their second friendly against South Sudan on Tuesday at the Nyayo National Stadium. Stars edged out Qatar by 2-1 in an initial friendly played at the Al Janoub Stadium on Thursday. The game was the fourth friendly for Harambee Stars since the World Soccer Governing Body, FIFA, lifted the international ban on the country. Kenya is using the matches to prepare for the 2026 World Cup qualifiers, which are set to kick off between the 13th and the 21st of November. In the qualifiers, the Harambee Stars are placed in Group F alongside Burundi, Gambia, Gabon, the Seychelles, and Cote d'Ivoire. And away from football, let's move on to boxing, where Kenyan boxers got off to a flying start as the African Olympic qualifiers got to a start in Dakar, Senegal. Hit squad captain Boniface Muguna knocked down 2016 Rio Olympic bronze medalist Mohamed Rabi of Morocco in the men's 71 kg round of 64. Africa Championship bronze medalist David Karanja advanced to the round of 16 after seeing off Justin Ndagamila of the Central African Republic. Kenya's Tresia Wanjiru also advanced to the round of 16 after defeating Paul Viano Lam of South Sudan in the women's 60 kg. However, it was a bad day in the office for Samuel Njau, who lost to Ethiopia's Iadesa Leta in the men's 57 kg. The Africa Olympic qualifiers will end on the 15th of this month, with the top boxers in each weight category booking a slot to Paris 2024. And Kalle Rovanpera dominated the Acropolis Rally in Greece after clinching his 2023 WRC win as Alfin Evans secured second spot ahead of Dani Sodo. The Acropolis Rally was round 10 of the 13-round season, and it's where the title run-in began with both the main WRC field and class of the WRC2.
And Candido Carrera receiving their trophies from Ababu Namwamba, Cabinet Secretary for Sport to the Republic of Kenya.
With a staggering 1.5 minute lead, Rovanpera showcased his unmatched dominance on the terrains of Greece, setting the fastest times on over half of the event stages. Rovanpera started on high, clinching victory in the Thursday night super special stage.
Yes, so that was a Tanak's split as well against Evans. He's 2.4 up as well at that stage, so it is looking like another maximum score.
It's a big relief. After a difficult rally in Finland, for sure we needed the comeback now, even though we never left. But yeah, strong performance. Starting first and finishing first is quite nice. Clever drive and still good push here. So big thank you to the team. Car is super strong, is fast and everything.
Sebastian Ogier, Rovanpera's esteemed teammate, encountered some unexpected challenges, providing Rovanpera with a lead of 2 minutes 4.4 seconds. Hyundai's seasoned driver Dani Sodo was locked in a nail-biting contest with Toyota's Elfin Evans. Both managed to escape mechanical challenges that plagued many of their peers.
The way he just pulls the gear, it was like, come on!
The Acropolis Rally was round 10 of a 13-round season and is where the title run-in began for both the main WRC field and the class of WRC2. For Sunday Express, I'm Daniel Mwendwa.
Banks and trees everywhere, getting close to the finish now. That next bit is here.
Now moving on, is that Chile impressed on their Rugby World Cup debut, but Japan pulled away to register a comfortable 42-12 win in their Pool D opener in Toulouse. Meanwhile, Australia subdued Georgia at the Stade de France to get their Rugby World Cup campaign underway with a convincing 35-15 victory.
Crossing for tries.
Who will score for Australia?
And so that's the sport for tonight. And from the Rugby World Cup, the latest result for you Springbok fans is that you've won 18-3 against Scotland in the match that just closed. So over to you, Regina, and what an interview that you received from the Cabinet Secretary, Zakaria Njero, who is the Cabinet Secretary, Land, Housing and Urban Development. And I love numbers. It's all about, sports and numbers never separate. But it's about the numbers. And it's about an anagram. 2.6 billion is what is the current figure around the affordable housing deductions, but the expected figure is 6.2 billion shillings.
I like where you're going with that, because this is a mandatory contribution for everybody who is in employment. Remember, the government targets there is around 6 billion shillings, and this is meant to actually incentivize the private sector as well as other partners to come on board and help the government realize this particular, project that is very close to their heart. Looking at the numbers even, we have had a yawning gap when it comes to matters of housing. 200,000 housing units against a deficit of around 2 million or so. So you can imagine if this continues growing every 1 year, 200K, we need to play catch up. But do you know what my take home is, Wahome, this evening? Is that one ID, one housing unit. And this particular housing unit, there are two options. If you cannot live in two homes, especially if you're married and you're a couple and you're contributing to this particular fund, well, you can leave it as inheritance. And remember, this cannot be sold. This particular piece of unit cannot be sold up until 7 years, after 7 years of occupancy. So after 7 years of occupancy, not construction, but 7 years, then you can offset, or rather you can transfer or sell or something. So think about it, look at it as an investment. I hope that going forward though, Wahome, we will be able to choose where we are going to be getting these units, given that now we have 13 projects that are already spread across various counties, as counties continue to onboard, looking at 13 projects that are likely to bring in another 40,000 housing units, Wahome.
Well, I'm trying to think of 47 counties across the country, and where every Kenyan has a right to choose where to live in any urban center. Well, that is a choice that we've got to make. Thank you very much, Regina, for that interview with Cabinet Secretary Zakaria Njero. My name is Daniel Wahome. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., it's Sports Check. Join us as we speak lacrosse, wrestling, and basketball.
Well, it is a wrap. Enjoy your Sunday evening.